And normally I'm set up in the corner of my room talking Clemson football, but no offense to Furman. This game was pretty much what it was. Clemson wins 45-10. Um, they were up, what, 31-3 at halftime, and then just kind of stalled out. We saw every quarterback, and I think that was probably on the roster, come out, but the bright spot was obviously Chris Denson. This is a guy that he was a 3-star when Clemson lost Blake Hebert last year, right before the signing day and so on. Um, they reached out to Chris Denson. He was supposed to go to Coastal Carolina, and so what ended up happening was they reached out to him, and he flipped his commitment, came to Clemson. And folks, I'm going to tell you, I know it was against Furman. I don't want to sugarcoat any. I mean, good grief, you watch my channel all the time, you know I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. Chris Denson looked really good. He was the only one that looked like, as far as the quarterbacks that we saw. Um, how do I put this? Denson looks like a player that could come in and play and do something really, really well. Like he has an explosiveness to him, and so I have the game on over here. Of course, the game is over, but I just saw Cade be interviewed, and I'll get to Cade in just a second. But anyway, Chris Denson definitely in 2 drives he had over 100 yards rushing. Again, I know this is against Furman, but I want to say this: I'm not knocking Cade. I'm not putting Cade down whatsoever. As I said, I'm going to talk about him in just a second because I feel like we need to address that. I think we need to talk about this is Cade's last game in Death Valley. And anyway, let's get back to Chris Denson. But with Chris Denson's explosiveness, all right, can you imagine that explosiveness if the offensive scheme does not bottle him up? Can you imagine him playing against, say, SMU? Can you imagine him playing against Georgia Tech? Right now, Georgia Tech's getting hammered by Pittsburgh. I can't believe it. I mean, right now, last time I saw Georgia Tech was down 21-0. Now, of course, there's a lot of football to be played. You know, we 3 hours from right now, Georgia Tech may win the ball game, and so on. I picked Georgia Tech to win the game. But with that said, but with that said, can you imagine Chris Denson against a lot of the teams that we struggle with and the teams we lost to? That explosiveness, I'm telling you, it could be something incredible. Am I comparing it to Deshaun Watson? Am I comparing it to Trevor Lawrence? No, I'm not comparing him to them whatsoever. But I will say that explosiveness really excited me. I was like, wow. I mean, this looks like someone who knows how to when they're mobile, they know how to extend a play. They look like they know how to move the football. And Cade went out and scored the touchdowns and so on. The other 2 quarterbacks did not score. And so you bring Denson out, and he scores 14 points in 2 drives. Sure, it's against Furman. Again, it's against Furman. But we all know the questions that we have. And I see in here, Drew just mentioned this. This is absolutely hilarious that with time remaining, they went ahead, the CW network went ahead and named Chris Denson the player of the game. And the truth is, I mean, he was explosive. I mean, he came out there and just took over. So that is very interesting going into next year. Of course, we have the game against South Carolina. They played a terrible, I say terrible, they're not terrible. They're not a Coastal Carolina team like we saw, like 3 years ago. It was actually 5 years ago when they beat BYU and they were undefeated and all that. That Coastal team has been gone for about 3 years now, okay? But with that said, South Carolina just beat the crap out of Coastal Carolina. And I'll tell you this because I had both games split. My son and I, my oldest is a Gamecock. I'm a Clemson fan. We were watching both games. They kept Linares Sellers out there forever. And I'm going to tell you this. I don't know what it is with coaches, and this is just not Shane Beamer. We saw this against Boston College with Kade. But this is something that a lot of coaches will keep their star quarterbacks out there. The guys who will literally win games for them or keep them in games, and they will tempt fate. And I'm just going to tell you, South Carolina kept Linares Sellers in for a very, very long time, and the game was well in hand. There was no Coastal Carolina coming back at all. But watching him play, knowing we're going into next week, we know that Kade's going to be out there the entire time. We know that if Kade had to come off, Chris Denson would not be the man who would take over, right? I don't believe he would be. I didn't say that he shouldn't. I just said he's not going to be the one who takes over. You know it, I know it. Chris Vizina will be our starting quarterback next year. And I'm not dogging Vizina. I believe once again, and this is where I'm going to transition into talking about Kade, I truly believe that Christopher Vizina is like Kade and like DJ, the most ill-prepared quarterbacks that we've seen in the recent Dabo era. And, everyone loves to dump on DJ. Everyone loves to take shots at DJ. But you got to remember, when DJ came out and played in his freshman year, DJ threw for, and I think the record still stands, the most yards that's ever been thrown against Notre Dame in Notre Dame Stadium. To this day, DJU owns that. What happened to him? Well, everybody's going to talk about his dad and take shots at him and Big Cinco and Big Stinko and all this bunch of stuff. And then you move on to Kade Clubnik, a guy who has never experienced a loss until he got to Clemson. And he experienced a lot of loss. And then everybody starts bombing him. Let's pause there. Does he earn the criticism, especially this year, with guys being wide open and him missing them? Exactly. I agree that. I agree with you 100%. But that he's a third-year starter, and that's still happening. That goes back to the coaches. I'm sorry. Oh, Christopher Vizina, he's been sitting on the bench. He's been biding his time. This guy was a 4-star out of Alabama. I mean, I'm telling you, I'm challenging so many people out there, and I'm just going to say this. I know I'm not everyone's cup of tea when it comes to talking about Clemson football, but I'm sorry, unless you want me to lie, there's really nothing more to say than, well, the truth. And when you tell the truth, if it's bad, I mean, I'm sorry, give me another truth to tell. The other side is truly a lie. You have a quarterback development issue, and the truth is, Chris Denson looks like, of who we have available right now, the person to go to run Clemson's offense next year. And if Kade went down against South Carolina for some reason, he would be the guy I would put in the game, because I think he offers a certain level of explosiveness. Now, let's just step back and look at this. Let's look at Kade Clubnik. And I want to talk about this. It really, really bothers me that Kade Clubnik is going out the way he's going out. Right? It should bother you that the guy did not experience losing, and losing at a high degree, until he got to Clemson. We're not talking about 1 or 2 games a season. We're talking about a lot. I really don't get what is going on there. And let's talk about this. As a player, plays more. And this was my concern with Diego Pavia up at Vanderbilt. My concern with Diego Pavia was that they were going to, teams were going to get a full season of film on him, and then they were going to shut him down this year. We've seen this happen so many times. Who is the one who decides what to do and how to approach the game when a team, and the opposing teams, has a complete season of of film on you. It's the coaching. It's coaches. And so, with that said, somebody just told me someone is spamming in here, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry, folks. I'm on my phone, so I can't change anything. If there's anyone spamming in here, I am so sorry. I can't control it on my phone. I will throw that out there. I'm so sorry, but thank you so much for letting me know. But here's what I'm trying to say. It is the coach's responsibility to step back and say, okay, just like we have an entire a year's worth of film on some other player, we know that the other team can throw wrinkles in. We have to do the same for our quarterback. Up at Vanderbilt, Clark Lee did that with Diego Pavia. In fact, I'm going to grab a chair now. Just sit here and talk for a second because I didn't expect to talk this long. Got my phone and got my microphone here. But with that said, we could talk about teams getting film on. Let's say they got film on Denson. It is up to the coaching staff to figure out, hey, guys are going to do this to we do this to other teams and their players. What are you supposed to do? You're supposed to adjust, right? So Chris Denson coming out and playing well is incredible, but looking at Kade, it really, really bothered me tonight because I think that Kade was totally bought into Clemson, South Carolina. I believe that Kade was totally bought in, and when he could have thrown his coach and his coaching staff under the bus, he could have done that. And there would be a lot of you, and then a lot of people who's not even, they don't even watch my channel. They're over on some forums right now talking about how great it is to be a Tiger. But they would have got angry had Kade called out his coaching staff. Had Kade called out his coaching staff and said, listen, you know what? I know I'm new here in the whole college game, but something does not feel right. It doesn't look right. I'm just not understanding what is going on. And you have to understand that a lot of these guys, especially at the level that Kade was at, he was in these major camps, big-time elite camps. He formed relationships with quarterbacks who were at big programs, and he's probably still texting with them. Maybe, they're on Instagram messaging one another. And they're talking about their experiences, and he's seeing the success that they're having. And meanwhile, he's in Clemson, South Carolina, catching crap from the Clemson fan base, being blamed for everything. And he never threw his coaching staff under the bus when they are the one who prepared him. And so when they pulled him and the camera got him and he started to tear up, I have a son that's 19 years old. The dad in me looked at Kade Clubnik and I felt horrible for him. That absolutely bothered me. And, I'm going to say this, and a lot of you, I don't know how you're going to take it, but I'm just going to say it. I don't know how many quarterbacks from different states and different times and different, when I'm saying different times, I'm talking about through the years. DJ being with us was 3 years ago already. It's already 3 years gone. I don't know how many quarterbacks in different time frames from different states that we're going to have to go through before we realize it probably was not them. Now, I've looked through, I've looked through some of the comments here. I can't see all the comments. I'm on my phone again. I just went live on my phone. Now I'm kind of wishing I would have did my normal setup. With that said, I'm seeing comments, about, hey, look, Denson ran against a tired defense. I get that, folks. I get that, and I get exactly where you're coming from. I will just say this, throw this out there to you. The other two quarterbacks was playing against a defense that was pretty tired by the time they came in, and they couldn't score. And he did. And I'm not saying listen to me, folks, I'm not saying he's the second coming of Deshaun Watson. Hear me out. I can be as pessimistic as the next guy. That's not my goal. My goal is to be honest. My goal is to be honest. And if the program or anything that I'm talking about is in such a place that anytime I tell the truth, it sounds like I'm being negative, that's not my fault. Did you hear me? If when I have to tell the truth, it's negative because I'm just telling the truth, I'm not the bad guy. Just want to throw that out there. Yes, I get that Chris Denson was running against a team that was tired, but he was the only one who did anything. And by the time Vizina and by the time Pierman got out there, that defense was pretty tired. They couldn't move the ball. So I will say this, that good for him. But going into the South Carolina game next week, I'm telling you, Clemson fans, you need to buckle up and you need to understand this. Do not get caught up in South Carolina's record. South Carolina is not as good as what they were last year. I am telling you this 100%. Take it to the bank. They are not near as good as they were last year. And I told them that in the preseason. And of course, the Carolina fans, as they always do, not all of them. I have some good Carolina fans who follow me. But they basically told me that I was being a Clemson fan and that I didn't know what I was talking about. And I told them, you lost most of your defense. That incredible defense that they had last year, who had so many quarterback sacks, it was ridiculous. And they were returning only Dylan Stewart, Cisse, and Kilgore, maybe one more. The vast majority of that defense, I told them, Tonka Hemingway, they're gone. And y'all were acting like y'all were Ohio State going out here recruiting out the wazoo and with endless money to pick up guys in the transfer portal. I told them this was coming. You have to have more than Lenora Sellers playing for you. I told them. They didn't listen. They're what, 4-7? Now, I know Clemson's terrible. I know that Clemson wasted this season, and you know what? They did. You can't win a championship every year at Clemson. You can't win a championship every year anywhere. But losing 5 games with this schedule? With that said, do not get caught up in South Carolina's record. South Carolina has lost to a bunch of good teams. And a loss is a loss, but according to who you're losing to and how you lose, yes, I made fun of them for last week, and they deserve it. They blew a 27-point lead. They were up by 27 points at halftime. They blew it. All they had to do was run the clock out. Get a field goal. All you have to do is kick a field goal, and you're done. And they couldn't. But they've lost to some really good football teams. Clemson has lost to some bad football teams. Now I want to throw an asterisk here before I say this. When Clemson played Syracuse, they played Steve Angeli. Steve Angeli was the transfer quarterback from Notre Dame. By the time he played Clemson, he came into the Clemson game the number 2 pass leader in yardage in all of college football. He burned Clemson, and then he got hurt. Ended his season. I think it was a torn Achilles. It was awful. And someone even jokingly said Clemson didn't stop him, but the turf did. And with that said, With that said, excuse me, after that point, Clemson was done. Clemson was, or I mean, not after that point, Clemson was done. Clemson was done before then, but Syracuse was done. Syracuse just lost by 60, 63 points to Notre Dame. And we can say, well, Steve Angeli was not playing for them, and they probably have other injuries and so on. Sure, and that is important. But to think that Notre Dame just beat a team that came in and beat us, at one time was beating us by 20 points, and Notre Dame just beat them by 63, I think it was. That should bother you. That should truly bother you. Even missing some players. I mean, losing that much, it should bother you. But right now, looking at this South Carolina game, and this is my preview of a prediction, and of course, I'm going to have some fun this week. It's kind of very difficult to have fun going into the South Carolina game, knowing that we have been favored in every game this year, except for Louisville. Oddly enough, Clemson won that one. But that I believe the line has opened. Maybe it's moved in the past few days, but Clemson's like a 2.5 point favorite over South Carolina. Clemson fans, I'm telling you, do not be shocked if South Carolina beats us. Do not be shocked. Don't be shocked if South Carolina comes out and they beat you and you're sitting there about to make fun of them and you're about to talk about how they had all these high hopes. Yes, it was funny that they had high hopes because they lost most of their defense, not even half their defense, almost all their defense. It's funny as a rival. But the fall apart in Clemson, South Carolina, if I was a Carolina fan, I would be laughing so hard I would wet myself. I would ruin a good chair, wetting myself, laughing over how terrible it is. And I'm just throwing that, I'm just telling you, do not be shocked if South Carolina beats Clemson next week. And Clemson will be 6-6. Today, Clemson solidified by beating Furman that they will not have a losing regular season. A losing regular season. And so, going back to Cade, I totally got off kilter there. And I've actually talked on this video much, much longer than what I wanted to. But it just bothers me for him. I don't think that Cade was a bad guy. And I think when guys like Cade comes in, and when a guy like Cade comes into the equation, and they don't throw the bus or the coach under the bus. They don't hit the transfer portal. They don't give up. And they go out this way. Clemson fans, if you're serious about Clemson football, and I'm saying serious about Clemson football. I'm not talking about you have an old worn out Clemson football shirt that you throw on and you woo-hoo over a team that wins. I mean, like you cheer just as hard when they're a 3-win team as if they were undefeated. And I know some people's going to disagree with me and go, well, hold on, whoa, what about loyalty? You need to understand that it's totally okay to love a team and look at them and go, man, this is bad. It's hard to watch. I'm pulling for them I'm sorry. But I'm talking about people who look at the game intellectually and you're like, you know what? And you can't keep approaching the game the same old way. You can't keep calling the same old scheme and expect different results when the results is you're losing. And you're increasing your losses in the win-loss column every year. And if you're that type of fan and you actually care about the players, you should be bothered. You should be totally bothered that Kade Clubnik came in, was a class act, busted his butt, and he goes out like this. And so, anyway, all right, folks, I'm going to go watch football. I'm going to go watch more football. I know that Florida and Tennessee's kicked off since I've been on here running my mouth. Georgia Tech, last I saw, they were losing 21-0, so I'm kind of shocked there. Someone just asked me, so who do you think the starter is at LSU next year? Based on history? Based on history, and I see Ruby Ridge in here stirring the pot. Hey, some of y'all, if y'all don't know Ruby Ridge will stir the pot. I mean, like, stir it. Bring the biggest stir in the world, and just absolutely run you into the ground. So I see Ruby Ridge in here, and some people don't know how to take Ruby Ridge. Yeah. So let me see. Corey McMullen says, so who do you think the starter is at LSU? No, just your thoughts, bro. My thoughts, Christopher Vizina is going to be the starter next year. And you ask me why? It's because he's been sitting on the bench waiting his time. That's how Dabo approaches who's going to be the quarterback. And so I'm just saying that that's the approach. And we could say, well, that was different with Kelly Bryant. Sure. But Kelly did start the season with Trevor Lawrence on the bench. And then Trevor knocked him out. That was a very different situation. Here's the deal. We don't have a Trevor Lawrence on the football team. So to compare like situations, you have to have like variables, and we don't. So Christopher Vizina, unless something crazy happens, will be the starting quarterback at Clemson next year. Unless Vizina hits the transfer portal and he's like, man, I need out. So, I mean, I think that Vizina is definitely the starter unless something happens there. He'll be the starter because that's how Coach Sweeney operates. And then if Vizina starts to lose a bunch of ball games, then we'll see the next guy up. That's what's going to happen. And so it's just I think that's who we're going to say. All right, folks, I'm going to let y'all go. I hope y'all will subscribe. It is free. Pass it along. To anyone who says that recently who has been asking my thoughts on, well, I'll get to that next week. I'll get to other stuff next week. Y'all take care of yourself. I'm going to watch football. Have a good evening. Go Tigers.